Today we're going to discuss the Google and the Facebook, which are subject to large antitrust investigations. And the good news is for our democracy and the free press is that they might be heading for a breakup. This is a discussion, an editorial named The Great Breakup of Big Tech is Finally Beginning by Matt Stoller at the Guardian newspaper. And let's read it, and then we'll discuss it. Last week, state attorneys general, led by Texas and New York, announced investigations into Google and Facebook for possible antitrust violations. Antitrust violations basically deal with the monopolization. This is a big deal. No society has ever centralized control of information as we have in big tech. And this is the first real American strike at the problem. As Scott Galloway frequently notes in his podcast with tech journalist Kara Swisher, the big tech breakup has finally begun. What have Google and Facebook done to merit such attention from authorities? What is that they have done that they are getting this attention? To put it simply, they use their control of the flow of information to monopolize advertising revenue, killing newspapers across the country and around the world and eliminating potential competitors in a host of areas. Since 2007, a little less than half of all newspaper journalism jobs in the U.S. have been eliminated. Out of America's 3,000 counties, two-thirds now have no daily newspaper. Every sector of news gathering is in decline, and not because the appetite for news is down. People want news, but the traffic and ad revenue that used to flow from news now flows to the digital duo. The digital duo is the Google and the Facebook. The market structure failing in advertising markets are a strange problem because no one actually wants advertising, but advertising is nevertheless critical to give the press a viable financial lifeline and one shielded by the state. The advertising had financed our news gathering since the early 1800s, and it is unlikely that we have a democracy without the journalism establishing enables. Facebook's global revenue will be over $60 billion this year, and the Google will be more than $110 billion. Most of this money used to be directed to publishers. So how do Google and Facebook control ad avenues? Let's just look into it. The Facebook and Google are basically advertising backends tied to large consumer-facing products. Google has 8 products with more than 1 billion users, and Facebook has 4 products with more than 1 billion users. Their business models are quite complex, but the gist is that they seek to place ads in front of you while you are trying to communicate or when you are looking for something else. Whatever you're doing, you get the ads. So far, this doesn't sound so bad, but Google and Facebook aren't just getting a lot of online ad avenue growth, they are capturing practically all of it. And this is where data comes in. The most important input for an advertiser is knowing who is watching the ad. If you know who is seeing an ad slot, you can charge a lot of money to tailor it for a person's specific interest. If you don't know who is seeing an ad slot, you can't charge very much at all. Google and Facebook know who is looking and the slots everywhere and what they're interested in, so they can sell anything any marketer needs. These corporations enhance their power by getting data from nearly every publisher that exists. Google and Facebook need publishers to serve their large audiences, and publishers need Google and Facebook as distributors. But the power imbalance is stark. Google and Facebook need publishers, but they don't need any one specific publisher. By contrast, every publisher desperately needs both Google and Facebook to get their content in front of the readers. For example, a few years ago, Google decided to punish the Wall Street Journal, for enacting a certain type of paywall by downgrading the newspaper's search ranking, lowering the Wall Street Journal's traffic by 44%. Google business was unaffected. With this imbalance, both Google and Facebook can and do entice or force, through a cost of arrangements, millions of publishers to hand over data about their audiences and subject themselves to specific formatting choices. In other words, Google and Facebook both compete with publishers for ad revenue and force their publishers to hand over data about their readers and subscribers, data which is the main input the advertisers want. The net effect of this market structure is that news gathering can produce news, but most of the advertising revenue earned from people consuming that news goes to Google and Facebook. Google and Facebook earn money from other people's work, which is unfair and anti-competitive. And it's why newspapers are dying. A strong set of antitrust suits, regulatory choices, and or legislation splitting apart these companies and regulating the data used in ad markets can restore the flow of advertising to the people who do the work to earn it. Such actions will restore the strength of our democratic institutions. Normally, antitrust enforcement would come from a federal government, but Trump enforcers have proved irrelevant at best. Instead, these investigations are being led by the states. The Republican Attorney General of Texas and the Democratic Attorney General of New York are informal leaders, meaning that the investigations are bipartisan. The state attorneys general complement an important investigation by the House Antitrust Subcommittee led by David Cicilline. Such leadership suggests the rule of law, absent from American businesses for several decades, may be on its way back. There are also important investigations, hearing on cases by enforcers in Germany, France, European Union, Israel, India, Singapore, Russia, Mexico, and Australia, and other nations. These corporations have become too powerful to be contained by democratic societies. We must work through our governments to break them up and regulate our information commons, or they will end up becoming our government. And choosing what we see and know about the world around us. It's easy to be despondent about the state of the world, but at the least in this case, they are public servants fighting for the people. The author is Matt Stoller. He's a fellow at the Open Markets Institute and author of Goliath, a book, 100 Years War Between Monopoly, Power, and Democracy. Now here is my 2 cents, or our 2 cents. The check and balances and the agencies, those who keep check and balances, of course supported by the lawmakers, keep pressing on regulations from becoming one entity, becoming so powerful that may not be in the interest of our ordinary citizen, and of course not in the interest of small businesses. Every nation must be dealing with it, and they are dealing with it. Looks like it is an international effort to keep democracy alive and kicking. People will get caught up in the crossfire, but most of them are protected by the state. And as it happened most of the time, people must come forward and be bold enough to save the democracy and the rule of law. Many departments, when they start working on these antitrust type of regulations and enforce them, etc. They have consensus before they actually take action, because the bigger companies are so big, they themselves have in a way become the government itself. So before pulling the plug, not only the political point of view is always bipartisan, but other regulators and other agencies also pull in their resources and stand on one platform before they pull the plug. So हमने देखा कि हर देश के अंदर जहां जहां प्रजातंत्र अपनी जड़ पकड़े हुए है, वहां वहां प्रजातंत्र को लगातार स्ट्रांग और सलामत रखने के लिए भी एजेंसीज अपना वर्क करती हैं, सरकारें अपना वर्क करती हैं। और ये जो एफर्ट आपने पहले मूवमेंट्स में देखा, मी टू मूवमेंट चली, उसके बाद पोर्नोग्राफी की तरफ मूवमेंट चली, उसके बाद करप्शन की मूवमेंट चली, अब ये नई मूवमेंट चल रही हैं जो ऑलमोस्ट इंटरनेशनल हैं। ये एक देश से दूसरे देश, दूसरे देश से तीसरे, तीसरे से चौथे, और जहां जहां कंट्री बड़े हैं वहां पे ये साझा एफर्ट ही होता है। और एक तरह से ये अच्छा एफर्ट है कि अगर किसी तरीके से जो प्रजातांत्रिक ढांचा है उसको वर्ल्ड वाइड सिक्योर रखा जाए, तो ना ही जो नागरिक हैं उनके अंदर एक फेथ और ट्रस्ट जागेगा, वो दिल लगा के अपने देश और अपने समाज और मानवता की सेवा कर सकेंगे। आज यहीं, कल या परसों फिर मिलते हैं। सबको नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल।